Hey guys, we're back. I'm Anthony. This is Matt. We're the Among Us Burnouts, and we are going to get into our Week 7 results and Week 7 power rankings and Week 8 pick'ems. So, good.
Starting off with Shield Division, our first match that we had this week was the Matt Alcinas and the Socal Skarmories. We actually got this one wrong in our pick'ems last video. We knew it was kind of a long shot. The Mats have obviously been doing better than the Skarmories so far this season, and this did not change for this matchup. So, and really, what this match, if you haven't seen this match, go pause this video right now and go watch it. At least watch the first turn because it's kind of nuts. Um, this match, a lot of this match came down to the first turn, and it was very obvious that with the Comfey and Lapras lead, the Skarmories wanted to go for the self activation on the weakness policy with the Giga Drain. They did that, and the Mats Gengar lead went for Haze before obviously being faster than the Lapras. And then it turned out their Incineroar was faster than the Lapras as well and went for a parting shot before the Lapras actually attacked. So the Skarmories intended to get a bunch of +2 max moves off. They only got +1 or -1 moves off, so it really hurt their ability to put out offense a lot. They'd already maxed the Lapras, so they kind of had to commit. They did get the Aurora Veil up, but whatever. It wasn't really doing much. And so after that turn one played out, both teams were trading a couple of blows. They each took a KO. The Gudra ended up getting poisoned, which was pretty significant because it was doing a lot of chip damage to it, and it wasn't taking a whole lot of damage from the special moves coming out from the mats, especially that Gengar. And the Gudra was Life Orb, so it was kind of a lot of the offense that they had left after their Lapras got neutered. So that ended up going down. The Gengar ended up going down on the Mats side. They traded blows until the Mats were able to position themselves well enough to Dynamax the Magnezone, and they took out the entire right side of the Skarmories team with 3 consecutive max moves. They hit the Mr. Mime with a max Steel Spike, they hit the Unpheasant with a max Lightning, and then they hit the Lapras, which came back in with yet another max Lightning. And at that point, the Crocodile Comfey was all they had left on the other side, and the Urshifu was actually able to clean up from there. We kind of thought that the Comfey was a big part of the reason why the Urshifu was not going to be too much of a threat. But I believe they actually switched the Comfey in the late game when the Urshifu was trying to go for a close combat. It was pretty low HP already. It had taken a couple of hits, including a snipe shot in rain previously. So, the Urshifu was just able to clean up there. So, props to the Mats. Good win for them.
Yeah.
Next, we had maybe the most important game of the week. Definitely the most important game in Shield Division here. The New England Patriots versus us, the Among Us Burnouts. Last week, the Patriots took their first loss. We had actually anticipated this being a game between the only 2 undefeated teams left. Instead, we went into this game 5-0, and the Patriots went in 5-1. This is the one game out of this division that we didn't get to see. I'm not gonna painstakingly go through each individual turn, but I'll give you guys a better, more in-depth play-by-play for this one. We ended up leading with Duraludon and Cottonee. The Patriots ended up leading with Manectric and Caparajah. We had to our lead Duraludon Cottonee, obviously a pretty offensive lead. We kind of had to pivot from that offensive mode into kind of a bulkier mode to handle what they were about to do because we anticipated the Caparajah going for the Dynamax, which it did. And we also expected the Manectric to be going for Snarls, which was not going to be good for the Duraludon. And it was very likely to be Focus Sash as well. So even if we had, for example, Tailwinded and gone for Max Wormwind or something into it, it was going to survive and get a Snarl off. So we switched the Duraludon into the Gourgeist and went for a Prankster Charm on the Dynamax Copperajah. The Gourgeist ended up taking a -2 Max Quake really, really nicely. We came in, the Frisk activated. Turns out the Manectric was indeed Focus Sash. The Copperajah being Life Orb. We took a Snarl, a little bit of chip damage on both, broke our Sash on Cottony. And then the Gourgeist was sort of able to just sit there and ride out the Dynamax. We didn't really need it to do much. It was just taking a lot of chip damage while it was trying to chip down the Manectric a little bit. It also went for a Will-O-Wisp on the Copperajah, so we went for a second Charm on the Copperajah and Will-O-Wisped it, so it was doing such a small amount of damage. Turn 2, it did end up KOing the Cottony with a Max Steel Spike. After that, we got a free switch into Volcarona. We went for Protect on Volcarona. By that time, the Copperajah was burned and at -4. We were protecting against a potential Max Rockfall, which they did have and they did go for. It did very little damage through the Protect. Eventually, the Gourgeist eventually went down to a bunch of chip damage from the Snarls. It also took a little bit of damage from the Max Quake earlier. It took a little bit of sand damage after the Rockfall went off. And we ended up getting a Quiver Dance on the Volcarona. We got hit by a Snarl, so we were still at neutral special attack, but we got a Quiver Dance up, and we were able to get a free switch into Noivern after the Gourgeist went down. And that's really where the game took off for us, when we were able to max the Noivern. We got a lot of offensive momentum there. We didn't really have much while we just had the Gourgeist and Cottony out on the field while we were sort of riding out the Copperajah's Dynamax. The Copperajah actually switched out after it was done with its Dynamax into the Arcanine. So we were going for a little bit of chip damage with Heat Wave after we went for a Quiver Dance, and we maxed the Noivern. The Clefable ended up switching in on one of those hits from Volcarona. The following turn, we hit it with a Giga Drain and a Max Airstream to pick up the KO on Clefable. Arcanine was sort of just sitting there firing off Heat Waves for a while. It wasn't really doing much damage. The Volcarona had a special defense boost. The Noivern's, Dragon type, its Dynamax wasn't really taking much damage. After that, after the Clefable went down, they brought in the Inteleon, which protected against a Max Wormwind. After that, on our last turn of Dynamax, they switched the Inteleon back into the Manectric to soak up the Max Wormwind. It went down, and after that, our Dynamax was over. The Arcanine just kind of sitting there firing off Heat Waves the whole time. It was taking a couple of hits from the Volcarona. It was at about half HP, and we were able to pick it up with a Life Orb Draco Meteor after that. After that, we switched out into Duraludon to get rid of the -2 special attack. We ended up switching into a Soak from the Inteleon. Because the Rillaboom had gotten a switch in after the Arcanine went down, so they were going for Soak shenanigans with big Grass type hits from Rillaboom. They were kind of forced to fake out the Volcarona at that point. The Volcarona had been taking damage from mostly just a lot of chip damage. It took a little bit of damage early on from the Max Rockfall. It was taking a lot of chip damage from Heat Waves and from the sand. So it was at pretty low HP. They probably could have picked it up with they definitely would have picked it up with the Fake Out. We protected. They ended up Grassy Gliding next turn. We were at such low HP that the Grassy Glide actually picked up the Volcarona.
You got the Flame Body activation.
Yes, so Flame Body actually... So both the Pokemon left on that side, the Rillaboom and the Copperajah, were burned. And then after that, we ended up getting a free switch into Blastoise. We switched out the Duraludon immediately. We didn't want it taking a Grass type move after we'd been soaked. So we switched into Noivern. The timer was ticking down. The very last turn, we went for a fake out and Life Orb Air Slash into the Inteleon because it had just protected the turn before. So it was a relatively free KO. And then we still had Duraludon, Noivern, and Blastoise left, and they only had Rillaboom and Copperajah left. The Rillaboom was burned. It ended up going for a Wood Hammer into the Noivern. We think they also tried to soak it that turn. The game ended up finishing 3 on our side and 2 on the Patriots side. So it really came down to the wire. It was as with a lot of the Patriots games, a lot of it ended up being kind of defensive. We were kind of, especially in the beginning, we were really just trying to neuter the Copperajah, stall out the Dynamax. We basically made it so they didn't have a Dynamax that game. That's how much the Copperajah was neutered between the Will-O-Wisp and the Charm. So it was a really good game. We were really not we weren't confident that we were going to be able to take the win until the very end because we knew it was going to come down to time. It seemed likely that we might have actually ended with the same amount of Pokemon. So in that situation, it was going to be really uncertain as to who takes home the win. But with that last turn with the fake out and air slash on the Inteleon to pick up the KO, that was really what sealed it up. So as soon as we saw that the Inteleon did not protect and the air slash didn't miss, that was game. So really well played game, I think, from both sides.
Yeah.
And this game also makes us the first team to lock for playoffs as well. So
first team to 6 wins in our division was going to make playoffs.
Yeah.
It was going to be an opportunity for either the Patriots or us to make it because they would have gone to 6-1 or we would have went to 6-0.
Yeah.
So
this was a lock match for either of us, regardless of who wins this match. The winner locks. That turned out to be us, so we're 6-0 right now. Moving on to the final game in the Shield division, we got LA New Wave versus the Lava Ridge Raiders. Not really much to say about this one. I think a lot of this game sort of came down to stuff that we've seen before out of the Raiders games. They have a strong Trick Room mode. They didn't get Trick Room up, and they really suffered for it. So, but the Tauros and Frostlass lead from LA New Wave earned him some major style points. I mean, that was really cool to see, especially with that combo's been around for a while, but with Dynamax, it's even more powerful. Yeah. It was really cool to see that come out, and I think this was definitely the week for them to do that. If we've based on what we've seen from the Raiders games, as long as you're not playing too terribly, you can sort of do what you want and get away with it. I mean, when they played against Ben and Vichy, Ben and Vichy brought Score Bunny against them, and it ended up getting 2 KOs. So if you've got some wacky combos or some memes on your team, that's maybe the time to do it. And they definitely pulled it out with the Tauros there. It was really exciting to see that. The Weather Ball on Venusaur was a good bring. The Frostlass ended up surviving, which was very strange. I think a lot of what this match showed was that the Raiders just don't seem to have any offensive EVs on a lot of their Pokemon at all. We saw that in previous matches with their Mudsdale. When they went for a heavy slam onto our Grimmsnarl, it didn't do nearly as much damage as we expected.
Yeah, we were expecting a KO for sure.
Yeah. And then the fire type Weather Ball into Frostlass not KOing was a really big deal. We saw toward the end of the game they Dynamaxed their Slowbro, and they were using fake tears with their Thievul. And the Slowbro still it was getting snarled, but they still had the drops essentially on their side. They were going for a -1 into a -2 Duraludon, or like a -2 hit into a -4 Duraludon. The Duraludon was Assault Vest, and it kept snarling, which really helped them a lot. but they just the Raiders just didn't have enough offense to close out this game at all. The Tauros, the +6 Tauros in the early game just tore them apart, picking up some crucial KOs. And then in the late game, the Assault Vest Duraludon just really slowed down what they were able to do. The Slowbro ended up going for a max Mindstorm and then an Expanding Force after Dynamax was over. The Duraludon was at -4 at that point, and granted the Slowbro was at -2 special attack, but the Expanding Force was just doing so little damage
in psychic terrain.
Yeah, in terrain with because they had set it up with the Max Mindstorm. So, yeah, it just seems like they have almost no offensive EVs on a lot of their Pokemon. So, that really hurt them there. So. Props to New Wave for getting the Tauros and Frostlass combo off. It's a really cool one. I'm glad we were able to see it and see them do it successfully as well. And then we had the Potatoes on a bye this week. So that's it for Shield Division.
In Sword Division, we actually had a nice little matchup here. Team Pussy versus Doesn't Click. On paper, this may seem like a match, if you're new this season, that Doesn't Click would come in and maybe win easily. But any veterans of the league knows that there's 3 championships in between these two teams. You know, they're definitely great players. They know how to prep properly. You know, we were in for an exciting match, and that's exactly what we got. With the lead, we actually got a Gyarados Diggersby lead from Team Pussy side versus a Raichu and Obstagoon lead coming out from Doesn't Click. I think what Doesn't Click was anticipating was maybe getting a Nuzzle off into the Gyarados. They actually didn't end up going for Fake Out or anything like that. They tried to attack. This Diggersby ended up being Scarf. Actually ended up being faster than everything on the field. Went for a Bulldoze. Dropped the Raichu speed. Broke the potential Focus Sash on there. And then the Gyarados just went right for a Max Geyser right into it. Got a Moxie Boost. And this helped a ton too because the Obstagoon decided to use an Obstruct on that turn, or a Protect essentially on that turn, and you know, it really just kind of made it a overwhelmingly great turn for Team Pussy. They just foot on the gas. They just went for it. You got a Moxie Boost. You took down one of their Pokemon, and you're in for a good time. And you know, they ended up bringing in later on with the with the Silvally in the back. Behind the Raichu, and they were kind of forced to, because obviously this Obstagoon was most likely going to come in and be defiant. They were forced to go for the Bulldoze and go into the Obstagoon because they didn't want to have to eat, you know, a defiant boosted attack. So while they were forced to do that, that allowed the Silvally to kind of get set up for a normal gem explosion. The explosion completely wiped the Diggersby off the field and did a nice amount of damage to the Gyarados. I think it did like around 70%. So I mean that's a good chunk on a Dynamax Pokemon there, and you're essentially just just sacrificing them on. So it was actually a really good play coming out for them there. The Cinderace then came in after that and was able to put down pressure on the Gyarados. Now the Cinderace was the last Pokemon on that side because the Raichu had gone down and then the Silvally had just exploded. So the Cinderace came in, Dynamaxed. It was going to be their main pressure, and they were able to get pretty good pressure down with this Cinderace. They were able to knock out the Gyarados, and while the Gengar was able to get Trick Room up because they had a Focus Sash, so while they were able to pick up a KO or bring it down to Sash, they weren't able to kill it and stop the Trick from getting set up. The Cinderace still put down a lot of pressure. It actually ended up taking, let's see, the Gengar down, the Crawdaunt down, and the Hatterene down. While they were in Trick Room. So even though they got this, mid to late game Trick Room mode up, Team Pussy did, they really weren't able to put out the offense that, stop the offense that Doesn't Click was putting out. The Hatterene was forced to protect a turn while it ate a Max Steel Spike, and then the Crawdaunt went down from a Moonblast from the Primarina. Just in general, just a lot of a great adaptation by Doesn't Click to continue to put down pressure even though their opponent has the speed advantage. And then right when they came out of Trick Room, They were able to basically wipe it down to one side and have a 1v3 essentially. And then things started to get a little bit tricky. It was the Rotom Heat versus essentially a Cinderace, a Primarina at low health or like mid health. I believe it was at 30%, and a full health Corsola in the back, Galarian Corsola in the back. And the Cinderace went for the Sucker Punch into the Rotom Heat. Brought it down to about it didn't go into the yellow, so I want to say like 48%. It was real close to getting into the yellow, but it didn't get there yet. Did about 48, 49%. The Rotom Heat went for the overheat into the Cinderace, knocked it out, brought it down to -2. They actually ended up switching, I believe, into the Corsola at that point, and we had the Corsola go for a Nightshade, brought it down to the Berry, and then we had kind of a little bit of a boosting war. The Rotom Heat started going for nasty plots. The first nasty plot put him back to neutral, and then once Doesn't Click saw this, they felt that their best adaptation was going to be to maybe boost up past them. So they boosted up to +2 on the Amnesia, and then uh, Team Pussy boosted up to +2, and then they boosted up again to a +4 with Amnesia, and then they nasty plot again to +4. So you know it's hindsight's always 2020. Yeah, you can say, hey, maybe they go for a couple of Nightshades there, and they maybe can eat a +2 Thunderbolt on the next turn. That's always a possibility. But obviously, uh, one of the things that me and Matt discussed while we were kind of talking about that scenario is they most likely built it physically defensive, knowing that they were going to run Amnesia. So maybe they weren't super confident that they were going to be able to eat 2 neutral Thunderbolts or a +2 Thunderbolt on top of that.
I think they were more worried about a +2
Yeah,
overheat. Like that
that could
might
have
have done
been.
it.
Yeah,
Because we don't know how they built it. It's a possibility.
yeah,
But if they were running the calcs at the time and they were like, oh well, we just die to a +2
yeah.
overheat, then their play there is absolutely correct.
So yeah, it was a tough scenario that they did. So the Thunderbolt, they actually did end up going in +4 Thunderbolt into the +4 Corsola. They got the crit. They knocked it out in one shot. That left only the Primarina to come out, and that was a easy cleanup for the Rotom Heat there. So, Team Pussy, taking the victory there over Doesn't Click. It's part of the game, unfortunately. Crits are all a part of it. Doesn't Click played amazing, but we shouldn't really take anything away from Team Pussy either. Their prep going into it with the Scarf Diggersby and the Gyarados, being able to set the Trick Room up with a Gengar and being able to maybe put down some pressure like that, even though we saw more offensive pressure, helped of course by the Dynamax from Doesn't Click. When you have a Dynamax Pokemon, it allows you to kind of go through Trick Room a little bit easier. You have 3 turns that you can put down pressure while still staying bulky at the same time. So that obviously helps. And then they came out of it, and stuff happens. Unfortunately, it's the way that the game is, and Team Pussy got the much needed win. They're in a tough division, but we'll see if they're going to be able to maybe be able to make playoffs here, because the next one down was the Sadistic Seniors versus the Melee Mimikyus. This actually went on a forfeit due to scheduling issues. This was really, really crushing. That's the only thing that I can say for the seniors here. They have a tough couple 3 games that are coming up here. If I'm not mistaken, they play the Sky Pillars, who have only dropped 1 game. The Potatoes, who have comprised of Alyssa and Henry, who are 2 world's caliber players with a great team composition, who seem to be finding their stride right now. And then I believe they play against Ben and Vichy, the Matt Alcinas, who they are also, they made it to the finals last year, and they're also hitting their stride right now. So out of those 4, no disrespect to the Mimikyus. The Mimikyus were the weaker in this schedule out of these next 4. You need to take a win on this. They got a loss on that. So it's really a crushing blow to the seniors right here that they have to take a loss to the Mimikyus on forfeit, because I know for a fact that they would want to play that out to at least see the outcome of it. Whether they win or whether they lose, they want to have their fate in their own hands. So really disappointing. We're gonna keep an eye on them. They're a playoff caliber team. They have the ability to make the playoffs. They have the team composition to make the playoffs. They showed last year that they can make the playoffs. So they are a playoff caliber team. It's disappointing that they took this loss, but we'll see. They have 3 games left, and it's going to be a close one in Sword Division. After that, speaking of top games, I think Matt said that the New England Patriots and the Amoonguss Burnouts was a game that needed to be watched. I think so too. Personally, it's two good teams that were going against each other. But this one was also a very good game. The Talonflames versus the Sky Pillars. I believe they were both X-1 going into this.
Yes.
Yeah. So both teams had only dropped 1 game. They were, I think they were next to each other on the power rankings, or no, they weren't. They were the
Pretty close. They were
Talonflames
both
were
in
at
top
3,
5.
and the Sky Pillars, or I'm sorry, the Sky Pillars were at 3, and the Talonflames were at 5. So yeah, they were in the top 5. These are 2 top 5 teams going at each other. So one of the things that we saw right away was something that we actually haven't seen from Shannon and Furat before. A very standard lead in Rillaboom and Togekiss. So, they brought that, and, maybe they felt that they had a good matchup against something that typically the Talonflames like to lead, the Dragapult, next to some type of support, whether that be the Tangela, whether that be the Liepard. But the Dragapult usually comes out, so maybe they thought that, they could put down decent pressure. We saw the Liepard Dragapult come out. They ended up switching out the Dragapult right into Musharna, probably, and trying to get the Trick Room mode going. But man, the Sky Pillars just played great. They faked out the Liepard. They right away, knocked it out with with the Dazzling Gleam, put good chip damage onto the Musharna as well. And after that, they switched out. They knew they couldn't stop the Trick Room from going up. They switched out the Togekiss, which picked up a KO like it needed to, right into the Golurk, which at the time they had just switched in the Toxtricity, which was threatening both the Togekiss and the Rillaboom on the side. So they figured, if they Sludge Bomb into it, it's going to resist it. If they go for an Electro-type move, the Golurk is going to just be immune to it. And I guess they were more than willing to just give up the Rillaboom at that point, which actually did end up eating a Sludge Bomb, ended up getting KO'd. But one of the things that we saw was that this Golurk was Iron Ball. It undersped the Musharna, was putting out really good damage. I believe it picked up 3 KOs, I want to say.
That sounds right.
Yeah. And a couple out of Trick Room as well. So while the Escavalier was also running the Occaberry like it has been running, which I believe has been the a great item to have on it, considering the last couple of matchups that they have. It's really slow Trick Room mons that have access to fire moves. They did it against the Russians. They did it again. The Occaberry did help out. It was able to live a max flare from the Golurk. And the Milotic came in and did what this Milotic always does. Always. It coils up, it chips you down with Scald, and then starts launching Hypnosis if anything next to it feels threatened. Oh, okay, you have a one-shot on the thing next to us? It's alright, Milotic can live it. It's at +1 Spadef because of the max ground moves, or the max ground boost. It's at +1 defense with the Marvel skill activated. It has access to recover. It's going to stay consistently at full health. And it's like, okay, we'll just Hypnosis you and then we'll attack you next turn. That's exactly what they did. They just Hypnosised everything. They got rid of the one side. The Musharna basically just, it tried to live as much as it could, but it just couldn't last against the combination between Hypnosis and, the Stomping Tantrum I believe they were running, and from the Golurk. So there was just really nothing that they could do.
High horsepower.
Oh, high horsepower. Yeah, you're correct. There was really nothing that they could do. The Marowak did end up coming in. It did end up Dynamaxing. And it actually, was it a fast Marowak? Because it did outspeed the Milotic.
Did it really?
Yeah, because
I don't remember that part.
So the Milotic, it was Milotic and Golurk on the field against the Dynamax Marowak, and the Milotic went for a Hypnosis, but the Marowak, I believe, actually outsped and went into what ended up becoming the Chandelure. They swapped out the Golurk into the Chandelure. The Marowak went for a Max Flare into it, and and it was able to put decent damage onto the Chandelure since it wasn't Flash Fire, this time at least. But then the Milotic was able to get the Hypnosis off, and that's a wrap. Even though you're Dynamaxed, even though, like, I've ran a team with Alolan Marowak, it's not super bulky even when Dynamaxed. Losing one turn of pressure, even if it's a sleep turn, and then not getting the roll and losing a second turn, it's absolutely crucial, and it's when it's the only thing on the field. The sleep was so good. So, while the Goal Lurk definitely had the stat line, of not getting KO'd and being able to pick up all these other KOs, the Milotic was really putting down pressure. I think it picked up the Escavalier. It might only picked up one or two, but being able to just put stuff to sleep consistently, stay alive, and just keep that side locked down. The Sky Pillars are really showing good mastery of the Milotic. They know when to bring the competitive. They know when to bring the Marvel scale. And it seems like they know when to coil, and they know when to just put stuff to sleep. So
it's been so hard to deal with for everybody. Mm-hmm. The only ones that have been able to deal with effectively are Doesn't Click, and they dodged a +1 accuracy Hypnosis and had to get a few full paras on it. So
yeah, exactly. So I mean, and they got a few full paras on it. So I mean, it's been a big problem for a lot of people, and the Sky Pillars are making sure that they're building sets that are consistently making it a big problem for all these teams. So kudos to them. They moved to 4-1. The Talonflames moved to 4-2, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but I believe they're 4-2 and
5-2.
Yeah, and the Sky Pillars are 5-1, and the Talonflames are 4-2.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the Russians had a bye this week. So with all that said, that wraps up week 7, and we are going to get into the week 7 transactions for this next upcoming week.
All right. So because these transactions are now live post week 7, you are allowed to use them in week 8. We're as we've said before, we're factoring these trades into our power rankings going forward here. So to start off with, we had the Melee Mimikyus trading Cobalion for Bisharp and trading Sneasel for Toxicroak. We have the Lava Ridge Raiders dropping their Orbeetle for Thievul, Socal Skarmories dropping Flareon for Fletchinder and Fletchling for Grookey. The Matt Alcina's seemingly changing up their almost their entire team composition here, getting rid of Politoed in favor, getting rid of Politoed and Magnezone in favor of Thwackey and Tyranitar. So trading 2 A tiers for a B tier and an S tier. Then we had the Potatoes trading one normal type for another. They got rid of type Null in favor of Kangaskhan. Toronto Talonflames making a D tier trade, dropping the Meryl for the Rufflet. And us, the Amoonguss Burnouts, finishing things off with our first trade of the season, also making a D tier trade. We dropped Coughing in favor of Munchlax.
Any trades you see here that we should just that we think are neutral, or kind of don't do much? Neutral to we're not good with. We just kind of go over those. There's a few of them.
There's a few that I think either don't warrant discussion or warrant very little discussion. I think the Raiders trade didn't really matter much. I don't see Thievul helping out this team at all. Again, it's not the trades that they needed to make. They should have been making really they should have been dropping Amoonguss more than anything else. We've been saying that the whole time. Amoonguss is still here. It's not helping their Trick Room mode at all to get rid of one of their only 2 Trick Room setters. And I don't really see what exactly it's doing here. They did mistakenly bring it in their week 7 match. It did okay, putting down the fake tiers, but when you're not running much offense or any offense at all potentially on your hard hitting Pokemon, it doesn't matter as much. It didn't really do much for them. So the Potatoes, let's see, type Null for Kangaskhan doesn't really make much of a difference. They're trading one normal type for another. I think this is an upgrade.
Yeah,
for sure. Type Null was just, they brought it once and it just did virtually nothing.
Got a Swords Dance off.
Yeah, and then how much damage was it doing after that?
Got a Swords Dance off.
Yeah, exactly. So the Type Null was, I think, most of the time it's just not a good Pokemon.
Yeah.
It doesn't have nearly as many options as Silvally does. It can't change its type. It kind of just sits there with the Eviolite and sponges hits. At least Kangaskhan I think has some utility. It's the only scrappy fake out in the game. Now that Megas are gone, Mega Lopunny doesn't exist anymore, so Kangaskhan is it. I don't know how much it's really going to be able to do after the fake out. I mean, it's nice that it has Inner Focus and Scrappy, so it's going to be immune to Intimidate pretty much regardless of whichever whichever ability you choose. But I'm curious to see what they do with it. You know, maybe maybe they can help set Trick Room up if there's maybe a ghost type that wants to like taunt their Slowbro or something like that. Who knows?
Yeah. I think it's worth saying that when we say neutral, I just feel that like it's maybe going to help you in a matchup for a turn or two. Might be a key turn or two. You know, not saying that it won't, but it's not something that you're necessarily making your entire game plan around. Kind of like the next one I want to talk about, the Talonflames, Meryl for Rufflet. I like having normal types around when you have a lot of ghost types. I think that it's a nice synergy to have. Rufflet's, has Defiant. It has, or no, it doesn't have Defiant. Huh? It gets Hustle. So, it's more or less just good there for the typing. Probably gets Tailwind. Does some other stuff too. It gets good access to like Rock Slide and stuff like that. So
I don't even know if it gets Rock Slide. I know Braviary does.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know if Rufflet does.
But the point being is that they're probably not designing their entire game plan around it.
Of course, yeah.
It's probably going to help for a turn or two.
If they bring it at all.
If they bring it at all, it could be a decent bluff mon. A lot of these, actually work pretty well as bluff mons. We use Coughing like that. We never brought it at all. And we bluffed it a few times. And honestly, neutralizing gas to a couple of teams, like, for instance, the Potatoes, where they have a sand mode that relies heavily on abilities, stuff like that. Neutralizing gas kind of can help them out, help them think about it a little bit. And so trading a couple of these just to bluff might be okay. So when we say neutral to bad or neutral to not great, it's not necessarily that it's not going to be useful. It's just it's not a key component to the team. Like we'll bring up this next one, the mats. They made one that maybe we don't completely agree with, but this is an entire change to their team.
Yeah, this is... I think the Tyranitar at least is going to help them in their cross division matches.
Yeah.
They're playing the seniors, correct?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so Thwackey is going to be great for that. But the only thing I find questionable about this trade is dropping Politoed immediately before you play against an opposing sand mode. I think because they are playing the Potatoes this upcoming week 8. Excuse me, week 8. And they don't have Politoed for that. And we've talked about how the Potatoes are probably, they look like they're going to struggle against a lot of water types. And Politoed is not only a super solid water type, but it's going to be able to override that sand on the switch in. Other than that, I'm not sure exactly how the mats are going to be able to deal with sand now in this upcoming matchup. I mean, Urshifu helps, but the Togetic is a big problem for that thing. Inteleon, its typing helps, but it's super frail. And it's obviously going to get outsped by Excadrill and Sand. Incineroar helps with Intimidate, but it's still, it's weak to ground and rock. Maybe Gengar kind of has the same problem as Inteleon. I don't know. Maybe Fungus can pull something out. Yeah. Eviolite, max defense, survive a hit, put something to sleep. I don't know. Who knows? I'm confident they'll figure something out because they almost always do. They're great players. They like with the Haze this last week. I felt like they had a pretty bad matchup against a lot of the combinations that the Skarmories wanted to go for, but they found one thing that was actually going to be able to take care of a lot of that stuff immediately. So I'm confident that they can find something, and I do like these trades going into weeks 9 and 10. I think it just really hurts them in this upcoming matchup.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment on the trade. Ben and Vichy, they're good players. They know how to build. They know how to do everything. So I'm sure when they looked at their next few games and they felt that they could build around it, but definitely questionable to drop your rain mode right before you go against the sand mode.
Yeah.
Then another one was the Socal Skarmories trading Flareon for Fletchender and Fletchling for Grookey. One that we would probably say isn't that great. I think you had mentioned to me when we were doing our meeting that you lost Flareon, which had a potential, offensive fire mode that you had, a fire type that you had, for basically getting another Fletchling, a little bit bulkier Fletchling.
Yeah, I mean it's obviously going to have a little bit more damage output, but it's not Fletchender's not an offensive Pokemon. I don't see it doing much that Fletchling couldn't do. So I think you're losing out on an offensive fire type here, in favor of a slightly bulkier priority Tailwind user and picking up a Grookey. And given the matchups that the Skarmories have left, I don't see them bringing Grookey at all. Like maybe if they were playing against the seniors, I could see it being important, but they're not. So yeah, overall, like I guess Flareon wasn't doing much for them anyway, but I liked that option on their draft better than what they have now. I think it's I liked this trade more when I first saw it, but as I started thinking more about what it actually how it actually changes their draft, I think it's a net loss for them.
I think that's pretty fair to say, honestly. Losing that fire type and the fire water grass core that they had going on for a little bit. I mean, as far as just what's it called, the Lapras being there, I should more say, but having that fire water, synergy there, really, they didn't bring it. It's tough. It's tough to say. It's just, I feel that in general it's a downgrade. I feel that they probably could have got a little bit more for it.
Yeah, and I don't really expect it to affect them too much.
No,
since they're not bringing their C tiers most of the time anyway. I mean, they are bringing their Unpheasant from time to time. It hasn't been doing all that well. It's done some good stuff. It allowed the Crocodile to get set up. It's done it's used a Tailwind or two. So. Not completely useless as their nickname would imply, but yeah, overall I probably a net negative trade, but I don't think it's going to affect much. Moving on to the Melee Mimikyus. Now, we've kind of been harping on the Mimikyus to make some crucial trades, and they definitely traded away the stuff that we thought they should get rid of. I wasn't so sure that they should drop the Sneasel, but I definitely thought that they should be trading either Durant or Cobalion. I think they made the correct decision there. I personally would have gotten rid of Cobalion instead of getting rid of Durant as well. But I'm not sure that what they picked up is benefiting them all that much. They still have another physically offensive steel type. Mm-hmm. This is at least good for opposing Intimidate. It deters Intimidate for the Durant because you're gonna risk giving Bisharp a Defiant boost. But it just doesn't feel like it adds another dimension to their team, which they really needed to do with that other A-tier slot.
Well, I mean, look, I love Defiant. I think it's a fantastic ability. I've used it on a lot of VGC teams that I've built. The ability to nullify Intimidates and scare away other teams that may rely on it a little bit is fantastic. But we have the rosters right here in front of us. The majority of teams don't have an Intimidate user. So while it's great in a VGC format where you're prepping for all these teams to might have an Intimidate user or two on the team, especially in previous formats like 2018 and 2017 and 2019 with Incineroar to an extent as well, where every team more or less had one or two Intimidators. Bisharp and Braviary and all these Pokemon absolutely thrive in those conditions. In draft, like a situation where Team Pussy has Gyarados, they just bring Moxie. They don't need to go Intimidate. They know that you have a Defiant user. They're not trying to proc that. We ran Obstagoon last year, mostly for the Dark typing, and being immune to Ghost typing. We thought it was fantastic next to what we had, and did we even get Defiant boosts at all?
I don't think so.
Yeah, so it's well, the addition of Dynamax or max moves being able to lower stuff down and lower down stats as well to raise them, that could be beneficial. Teams are, if they know, like for instance, we saw that with the Obstagoon. They know, okay, we'll go for the Bulldoze. We're willing to activate the Defiant boost because we're going to blow you up right now. So teams are more willing to go, okay, yeah, we'll go ahead and activate your Defiant boost as long as it means that we're going to give you a defense drop that's going to knock you out this turn, or a speed drop that's going to allow me to outspeed. So teams will adapt in those ways. Another aside that I kind of wanted to say is, as I was looking through some of the things that they could have got, man, G-Max Colossal I felt would have been so good instead of the Bisharp. And not trading away the Sneasel, keeping the Sneasel and having that Sneasel Colossal mode, and then also having like a Fire type that can kind of pair alongside the Blastoise as well, and maybe not force you to have to Dynamax it every turn. Granted, it's tough when you spend S tier points on like getting the G-Max version of it, and you want to run the offensive one. But if you decide, you know what, man, we're going to go with the Colossal mode, if they picked it up, go with the Colossal mode, and we'll redirect with Blastoise. We know better than anybody else. Blastoise is an amazing support Pokemon. It does so many things, and the fact that it also has the versatility to run offensive, which we've done before as well, makes it fantastic. And I feel the Mimikyus have to play static. Not that they want to play static with Blastoise, but they kind of have to, because of the way that their team is just kind of composed. So I agree that they did need to make trades, and they traded away some stuff that we did say that they needed to trade, but I don't know if they grabbed the stuff that maybe we would have thought. The Toxicroak is...
I just don't see what it's doing for them.
Yeah, I mean, we could be wrong. I mean, we're not, we're not the gurus that know everything. So, they could have it in mind for a particular matchup. It's just one of those things. But I thought Sneasel was not the problem.
Right, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
I didn't think so. I thought the main thing is that you dedicated 2 of your team slots to Cobalion. You dedicated the Cobalion and the Sneasel to it, and it's like, I just didn't see a point to that so much when you had the Durant.
Yeah.
But I think after that was it's us, the Amoonguss Burnouts, for Coffee and for the Munchlax.
Yeah, again, it's one of our D tier trades here. Much like the picking up the Grookey or the Rufflet this week. Probably not going to matter much. Probably not going to hit the field much. Don't really want to say too much more than that. Honestly, at this point right now, we're not even 100% sure if we're bringing it to any of our matches. We might, but if in case we do, I think maybe we'll keep some of our plans under wraps.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we just to keep it all on the table for you. It's not hard to see what Munchlax does. It's really slow, has access to moves like Belly Drum, stuff like that. But just to be realistic with you, we've had a hard time choosing which 6 to bring, and we have some of the stuff that we leave on our bench just as bluffs could potentially come and have huge impacts on matches. So
yeah, I mean this past week we benched Grimmsnarl
again. Again, we've done it before. Where we haven't even brought it. So it's just one of those things where it's like we liked coughing and the idea of coughing in certain situations, but then we would have to have coughing on our team, and it would have to take up a slot.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the things that we've seen with all these kind of D tier picks is they are nice, to kind of do 1 or 2 turn things, but with a team that's kind of well-rounded like ours, where like for instance we don't have an S tier, we just have an abundance of A's and B's and good C's to kind of round everything out. It's tough for us to justify bringing a D tier, when we just kind of have no S tiers or anything like that. That's super overpowerful. So
Yeah, it's a lot easier to justify bringing a D tier when your team is more stacked up top, because you have fewer things filling out your draft that actually look good. Maybe you can. There's a C tier that doesn't look as good as your D tier in like one particular matchup or something, and but with a more balanced draft, it's all 9 of our other Pokemon demand quite a bit of attention from us in prep and from our opponents, frankly. So, but I think maybe Munchlax demands a little bit more attention from our opponents than Coffee does.
Yeah, I think so too. And just kind of to add a little bit more to that point, like one of the Pokemon that we love bringing and we just have been a big fan of is Pincurchin, and we haven't brought it a lot like these last couple weeks because there's other stuff that we need to have. So it's just stuff like that where like we may be a big fan of particular Pokemon that we're like, oh man, we really like this on our team, but I think with a well-balanced draft like ours, it's tough for some of these other Pokemon to kind of see the field.
Yeah, there are a lot of times on our during prep when we're thinking, this Pokemon that's had a lot of success for us would be good here, but we just want everything else more.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so that wraps up the transactions for this week. So be a lookout on those for against your opponents and yourself this week, and that brings us to our power rankings. Oh man, we're kind of big here, huh? Hold on. Let's see. I won't do it. Whatever. It's just the first 2.
We know what those slots are.
Yeah.
14 down at bottom and 13.
The Raiders and the Mimikyus ended up switching. Did you want to take the evens this time, Matt?
Sure, why not? So Raiders drop down to the bottom slot. We've decided they are going to stay here at the bottom for the remainder of the season. Because they are finishing with a record of 0-9 after an incident that was discussed in the server. If you're watching this, I'm sure you know what we're talking about. We don't really need to go into it. But they're taking losses for the rest of the season. They're finishing 0-9 with a differential of -29, I think.
-29.
So they're going to be occupying our number 14 spot for the remainder of the season. Again, for their last match that they were actually able to play this week, taking another loss to LA New Wave.
And rising up, the Melee Mimikyus, they have 2 wins now. They got one against the seniors. Hey, we'll take a win either way. And what's the other one that they had there? They got another, was it a forfeit loss as well?
It's a future forfeit loss against the Raiders.
Yes, that's right. I forgot that those are put on the dock already.
Yes, that's also why the Talonflames have 5 wins now.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. All right. So, Mimikyus picking up 2 wins. They have those 2 wins, so they're going to be up at the 13th slot. Not a lot to say about that. They're moving up past the Raiders.
And number 12, we've got LA New Wave. They did take their second win this week. Wasn't a particularly big win. It was again one that we pretty much expect everybody in our division to have gotten. They played the Raiders. They earned some serious style points with the Tauros and Frostlass combination. Really loved seeing that. It was a lot of fun. But considering the 2 teams above LA New Wave, and also considering that this wasn't a massive win for them, we are keeping them at number 12, just like last week. So
at number 11, dropping down 1 place, is the Socal Skarmories. I felt that the Skarmories started hitting their stride a little bit, and kudos to Ben and Vichy. They came in a matchup where, we thought that they weren't going to be able to win. We thought the Skarmories were going to be on a roll a little bit. Steve and Googe, we saw last year, they're a playoff team. They are a playoff caliber duo. They didn't really have a draft that, is being able to put out as much results as we know that they would like and they're capable of getting. But we did like them this week, and man, the Mats really just prepped well. That Hayes in the first turn just really, really did them in, and they were on their back foot the whole time. But the Skarmories are dropping down one spot. They're moving down from number 10 to number 11. The good news is that they're in Shield Division, and anything can happen in Shield Division. We're gonna talk a little bit more next week on playoff stuff, but you know, there's a lot of things that could happen for some of these teams that haven't been able to get wins. Maybe they pull out these next few weeks and find themselves in the playoff in a playoff spot at the end of the year, despite having a great start. So right now, while the Skarmories are definitely capable of making the playoffs, they're going to be down here at number 11.
It's going to be an uphill battle for them.
Definitely.
But they can do it.
No, they'd have the ability.
Yeah. Number 10, we've got Team Pussy picking up another win against none other than Doesn't Click. They did obviously play very well, especially with that lead. And I was going to mention this during the beginning of the video when you were talking about that match. I thought that lead combination going for what they went for turn 1 was actually a little bit risky, considering that the Raichu could have just faked out the Diggersby. It was not in the Dynamax slot, and they also were risking a Defiant boost on Obstagoon. It turned out great for them. Neither of those things happened, and that was basically as perfect of a turn as they could have asked for. But even if they did, even if either one of those things happened, they were probably still in a good position. If the Diggersby got faked out, then the Obstagoon is not getting a boost, and you're still bringing Raichu down to Sash. Even if you do give Obstagoon a boost, it's probably not going to be able to do too much. It's still going to be slower than the Gyarados the following turn. It can probably, I'm sure it can take out the Diggersby at +2. I don't know. Did we see the Obstagoon's moveset?
I don't think we saw anything except for the what is it? Is it obstruction?
Obstruct, yeah.
Obstruct, yeah.
I just wasn't sure which side it was on. If it was on, because if it was on Ryan's side, then at least we saw.
Oh, you know what? It
moveset.
Was on Ryan's side, but I did not look at the moveset.
Okay.
Not at all.
Yeah, it was the only real danger there is if it's carrying Thunder Punch and goes for a +2 Thunder Punch into the Gyarados that turn.
I don't believe. I think it was just like double edge. I might have had taunt and then a dark move like knockoff plus obstruct.
So, but yeah, in any case, the more that I thought about it, the more that I actually liked the fact that they went for that play, even though they were risking a little bit between the fake out and the Defiant that Doesn't Click had on the field. They've definitely played pretty well in a lot of their games so far this season. Some of it's come down to luck, and that's pretty unfortunate for a team that we know is one of the best teams in the league at least in terms of skill. They're the returning champions for a reason. I've said it before. I'll say it again. And we feel that they, even though they won mostly off of that crit at the end of the game this week, we feel that based on the way that they've played, out of these 3 teams, 10 through 12, they all have 2 wins each. Out of these teams, we feel that they are most deserving of that top slot. And then we have the Potatoes and Russians at 8 and 9. They're both staying where they are. They both had buys. Not really much to say there. So
no. Yeah. At number 7, we have the Statistics Seniors. Again, heartbreak. It's terrible to see them lose or to a forfeit just because of scheduling issues. Just to be clear, too, I'm 100% in support of this new rule. It was one of the big issues that we had last year with matches going on too long. So kudos to everybody that decided to make this decision. It was the right call to make. It was just really unfortunate that we weren't able to see this match from the seniors and from the Mimikyus. Mimikyus really needed this win. Possibly could have put a dagger in their playoff hopes, but they're good players. They have a good team. We're not counting them out yet. So while they did take a little bit of a gut punch this week, we know they're going to come back strong. We know they're going to come back and try and do their best to try and get into that playoff squeeze, regardless of how tough Sword Division is right now. So, right now we have the seniors at number 7, but watch out for them. They definitely can make the playoffs, and we expect them to at least make that push.
And coming in at number 6, the Toronto Talonflames, moving just out of the top 5 after taking a loss to the Sky Pillars. Not really much more to say about this. We've talked about their draft a lot. We think that they are excellent players. They have they're still one of the top teams in Sword Division, even after taking this loss. They're great players. We like their draft a lot, especially after the recent trades that they've made. Unfortunate for them that they took a loss, but considering how well the Sky Pillars are doing, there's really no shame in taking that particular loss. So, still well played game by them. They still have a very good shot at making playoffs. They're definitely one of the top teams. But we felt for this week, the teams that ended up in the top 5 were a little bit more deserving of those top 5 spots. So, not knocking the Talonflames too much. We really like them. We like their team. They're one of the powerhouses in this league right now.
They took a loss this week. They'll be back.
Yeah,
they'll be back.
Yeah.
All right. So, let's see. Number 5, we have the New England Patriots. So, we like the Patriots a lot. We think they have a great composition. They have 2, now 3 good players that are piloting this team. But the fact of the matter is they've taken 2 losses in a row. They took one to us. They took one to the Mats. Also, they took those games went to time. And so, while we definitely know that they have the ability to close teams out, they did that against the Raiders, and I believe they did that against the Potatoes. They beat the Potatoes just straight.
No, I think that one came down to time.
Yeah. But we know that they've been able to do it, but it's just one of those things where they've lost a couple on time, they've won a couple on time. Their last playoff game against the Mats went to time. So it has, Cleffy is known as more of a defensive player. But I don't think this really has anything to do with playstyle. This week we played against Alex and Tekka. Alex Chan is known as more of an offensive guy. He likes to play offensive teams, and just kind of hit you hard and hit you fast. And it's tough to do that with this team composition, outside of a couple of combos like the soak stuff.
Yeah.
So even when you have guys that have very offensive mindsets and are building very offensive teams, with what they have with this roster, it's still not putting out the offense that it needs to. But where it lacks in the offense, it makes up for in the incredible synergy, which is why that it's been in these top 5 slides week after week after week, and they'll continue to be in these top 5 slides because their synergy makes up for it so much, and their play to be able to pivot out and be able to play defensively consistently to where they can keep you on your back foot and not allow you to put that offensive pressure down. It's one of the key things that they've been able to do. Now, one of the things that we have definitely been wrong on this team is that we're not seeing the Caparaja and Runerigus mode as much as we had at this point last year. At this point last year, that thing was a monster. It was taking out KO after KO. It was getting Trick Room up with the Bulldoze, with the weakness policy, and that just seemed to be one of the most consistent modes. This time, I think a little bit more versatility for them now. They have a couple more things like the Soak and Teleon with the Rillaboom strategy that they have. They have the Arcanine, which they've been able to run a bunch of different ways. The Beware has been coming around more often. It's got a great move pool. It has good bulk when it's has Fluffy on it. And then, in our opinion, one of the top redirectors in the game in Clefable. Just something that's incredible Pokemon that you can have and just put so many good support moves on it to make sure that you're enabling the Pokemon that you have to do what they need to do. So while the Patriots have taken 2 losses and they have gone to time, something that we've been real critical of, that they might not have the offense that they need to pull out a lot of consistent victories. The fact of the matter is they've only had 2 losses up into these couple of weeks, and it's definitely deserved them of this number 5 slot thanks to the synergy and the great play by by the managers that are running it. So New England the Patriots gonna be at number 5.
I think even though it's only been 2 losses so far, I think these past 2 weeks have started to show a little bit more that maybe the synergy that they have that's kind of meant to make up for the lack of threats is maybe not consistently enough to really make up for it. I think having a bulkier team and playing it in the way that they do has proved to be a little bit less consistent now. They're still clearly a playoff team. All they have to do is pick up one more win, and they're locked for playoffs. But I think these last 2 weeks we've started to see sort of the weakness in their team. They've tried to something that we've identified as a strategy of theirs is to max early on, take an early lead with that Dynamax, and then sort of just maintain the lead, and then sort of trade some blows maintain the KOs between the two teams after they take the lead.
Make trades once you get ahead.
Yeah. So, and these last 2 weeks, they tried to do that again, and both times it failed.
Yeah.
The way that Ben and Vichy stalled out the Inteleon Dynamax in their game against the Patriots was great, and they had very little offense after that. I mean, there was one point during Ben and Vichy's recording, I think, where you can hear Vichy say something like, "Man, this team is so passive."
Yeah.
Which, it is. And then again this week with the way that we shut down their Dynamax Copperajah immediately with those Prankster Charms and the Will-O-Wisp from Cottony and Gorgeist, they just had they had so little offense after that. It was we were able to blow through them once we got a decent amount of momentum, and then they just couldn't really do anything back. So I think we're starting to see that weakness come out a little bit more with these last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and it's fair to say too, because we're in Shield Division, and we know that some of these teams, they're not doing as well as some of the teams in Sword Division are. So it's one of the reasons why we do have the Talonflames below the Patriots. These next couple that are that are Sword Division teams, they have the same record as the Patriots for the most part, but we've seen really good play against really good teams out of them, whereas the Patriots against us and against the Mats, 2 of the better teams that are going to, besides of course the Patriots, 2 of the better teams that are in the Shield Division, we didn't see that consistent play. So I think that's something worthy of noting too. And granted, when you play against teams that aren't doing as well, it's your job to beat them. So kudos to the Patriots for going in and doing what you need to do. But you also have to finish that job the other way when you play against top tier teams as well. So, but the Patriots sitting here rounding out or starting our top 5 at number 5.
Coming in at number 4, cracking the top 10 the top 5, I think, for the first time this season.
They had a top 5 in week 1 or week 2 after they beat Team Pussy.
Okay, so when we were initially deciding power rankings for this week, we had placed the Mats down at 6, actually below the Patriots and Talonflames, but as we started to think about it more, we kind of feel like they deserve to be placed a little bit higher, especially after these last 2 weeks. I think you said they've started to hit their stride a little bit more, and last in our last power ranking video, we were only able to move them up 1 slot for after taking down one of the only 2 undefeated teams in the Patriots. So but that was mostly because of where all the other teams around them were placed. So we felt like this week was more of an opportunity to give them what they deserve for that win and for taking their most recent win against the Skarmories this past week, which was just a fantastic game by them. Turn one especially, but not just turn one. They played excellently. So, and we know we've said this before, but the kind of hyper offense that they've had so far in this league has been terrifying in their hands. They've taken a couple of awkward losses. They took an 0-5 loss against us, and they also took a loss against LA New Wave. So they're not. They haven't shown the best consistency, but I feel that with where they are now and with the wins that they've been able to pick up, especially these last 2 weeks, I think they're finally deserving of their ranking getting boosted up a little higher. So so we ended up putting them up here at number 4. Anything else to say on?
I think one of the reasons why we didn't move them up either after they beat the Patriots is because they had just taken that big loss to us the week prior. But we got 5-0 by the Patriots last year too. And I mean, while it might have been for a little bit of a different reason, like the fact of the matter is teams have bad days, stuff happens, there's a reason why the season is 10 weeks long and you play 9 of those weeks, you get a bye. Because we want to find out who on a consistent basis are going to be the better teams. The Mats seem like week to week they can beat you, so you have to prep for them, and they're going to come after you. We've seen some great stuff for them. We love playing against them. They always will bring something different. They'll always bring something that's going to surprise us, and then we kind of have a motivation to do it back to them. So it's just one of those things where when you have a team that consistently is able to prep weird stuff that they know, it's weird on paper, but it works perfectly against your team. And those are the kind of things that we love seeing in Draft League, where it's an unconventional, but it's a genius idea against a particular matchup. So a consistent thing that we've been able to see from Ben and Vichy this season. So glad to see that they're going to be at number 4. We'll see if they can hold on and keep on to that playoff spot. I believe they're 4-2 right now. So
yeah, I'm also very curious to see how these 2 trades play out for them.
Yeah,
it changes their team composition a lot because they're far less offensive now. They have a much better fire, water, grass core if you exclude the fungus, being that Thwacky is their main grass type now, but. I think, as I've said, I think it's going to hurt them in their upcoming match. But in the 2 after that, I think I can see them doing well with the ones that they just picked up. So overall, 2 matchups where it's a positive, 1 matchup where we feel it's a negative. Net positive there. So assuming we are correct about that. So, but yeah, I'm very interested to see what this new team composition is going to do.
3 dark types.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yep.
So
interesting.
It's going to be interesting, I think. Coming at number 3, we have the always reliable Doesn't Click, even though they did take a loss this week to Team Pussy. These losses have just been tough. And I kind of just don't even want to blame them too much on them. I mean, stuff happens. It's like we were talking about against the Mats. Like sometimes it's just things are going to happen. A turn or 2 doesn't go your way and you lose a couple. But let's just go over the facts. They have one of the better team comps in the game. I think that if you look at these just top, 6 beyond the Orbeetle or before the Orbeetle, those are 6 Pokemon right there that you have to prepare for, and they are going to be really tough to deal with depending on what sets they bring. They can bring so many different types of sets, and we've seen them do that. Then you add in stuff that has seen the field, like the Corsola, like the Orbeetle, that they could still do several different things to you with that. So the best way that I could put doesn't click is if you can think of a play that they can do that is absolutely going to annihilate your team, they're going to do that. They have the prep. They know what they need to do. If they need to run, some weird item in order to get the advantage on you, they'll do that. They ran switcheroo Obstagoon onto the Russians last year. So it's one of those things where they're gonna do what they need to do to win, and it's one of the reasons why we think we're a top team in the league. It seems they have it all. Even though they are X-2 right now, they have two fantastic players. They have the championship pedigree. They have the ability to kind of hunker down and prep, and they understand these draft leagues. And then on top of that, they have an amazing draft. So you combine all those things and you get what Doesn't Click has been doing. Couple rough losses due to a crit and due to a fissure being landed.
I think the loss against the Russians had more to do with the special defense drop on the Cinderace.
And you know what? I think Ryan and Fiona would agree with you.
Yeah.
Because that was pretty huge, honestly. Putting it in the range of that Jolteon, or making the Jolteon do that much damage, that's pretty big. So, good props to Doesn't Click. They're going to be in this number 3 spot. Sword Division's tough, though. Sword Division's tough. They know that. And that's one thing that's good about Ryan Fiona. They stay hungry. They do not rest on their laurels. So it's one of the reasons why if you have to play them next week, we are not we feel sorry for you. We are not envious of that position because they are not going to take 2 losses in a row. They will do everything they can to prevent them from doing that. So Doesn't Click sitting in here, top 3 spot. And at number 2...
Number 2, we have the top team in Sword Division, currently sitting at 5-1. The Sky Pillars. To be honest, I'm struggling to figure out something new to say about them, because most weeks we're sitting here talking about the Sky Pillars. We're praising them for playing a great game and praising them for blowing stuff up with Golurk and creating just this unkillable Milotic that's putting everything to sleep. Those two, if you told me early on in the season the MVPs of this team were going to be Milotic and Golurk, I'd probably look at you a little bit sideways and be like, dude, they have Togekiss and Gmax Rillaboom. What are you talking about? As far as I'm concerned, those are the 2 stars of this draft, which is fantastic to see. Part of me hates it a little bit because who doesn't walk away from a loss against a Coil Hypnosis Milotic seething with anger? But as a Coil Hypnosis Milotic player in VGC myself, I also kind of love it. So. They played another great game this week. Golurk just Dynamaxed and really went in. I loved seeing the Iron Ball on it. Unfortunately, its Iron Ball is not enough to underspeed the Escavalier, but that turned out okay.
Yeah.
And then the Milotic really helped them out there in the late game, especially putting that Dynamax Marowak to sleep.
Yeah.
That was absolutely huge. So, yeah, it's also crazy to see them here. We've said this before, but in our initial interview with them, when we asked them what their expectations were for this league, they mostly just said, "We're here to have fun. Maybe pick up a few wins here and there." I think they were underestimating themselves quite a bit. Yeah. They've clearly done a lot better than even they expected to do. So. And I think that's fantastic to see, especially given that they've turned out to be great players to be in the league with, and they've had a lot of really creative prep. I've loved watching their games every time they have one. So they're very deserving of this number 2 spot here. It's really it's a pleasure to see them up here.
Definitely. You know what I absolutely love, and we talked about this before, is Shannon is the Golurk love is clearly on one side of this team. It's clearly all on Shannon's side, and Well, he probably likes it, and he's like, "Hey, man, this thing's getting us win." His love comes nowhere near the amount that Shannon has for it, and it's hilarious to me that every time they Dynamax the Golurk, it's the optimal move to make.
Yeah, they're not just doing it
No,
because they're like, "Yay, Golurk!" No, it's actually the right move.
yeah, no, that's what you do. They put Iron Ball in it. Yeah, you Dynamax and you put down offense. You have safety goggles on it like they did against the Russians. Yeah, you Dynamax and you start putting out offense. Like, absolutely. Like it's the the Golurk has been such a nice surprise. I love Pokemon like this that come out from the bottom tiers and really shine on some of these teams that have like other stars around it that kind of enable the Golurk to do what it needs to do. Because, you know, the Togekiss, the Rillaboom, while they might not be the MVPs, when you look at this team and team preview, you just don't not prep for Togekiss. You have to prep for Togekiss. You have to prep for Rillaboom. And when you're prepping for all these different things, I think that's where stuff like Golurk gets caught or stuck in or gets missed in the cracks, you know. You just overlook it a little bit, and then they end up featuring their entire game plan around it, and you lose to it. You know, so I think that is a big help for it too. I like so many things on this. They've brought the Boltund before. I think the only thing we haven't seen are the bottom three, right? The Mawile, the Milcery, and the Rhyhorn we haven't seen.
Yeah.
But we've seen everything else. It's, you know, one of that was one of the knocks we had on it was that it was a top heavy team. They're showing that their prep makes that not an issue. They have so much diversity in their prep that even if they're a little bit top heavy, they're not going to bring the same thing every week. You know, the Mons may be the same, but the sets are completely different. And I think that's kind of a trend that you're seeing with these top teams in these slides. Look at Doesn't Click, look at the Mats, look at the Patriots, the Sky Pillars, and then, you know, us. Prep is the name of the game. You know, for you can ask any of those teams, they'll tell you, making sure that you bring something to check the other team, and that, you know, is going to be able to make you have a good matchup against them. That's the name of the game, and the Sky Pillars understand that. They've been executing on it, and they deserve to be sitting here at number 2. So big congrats to Shannon and Ferret. Anything else?
No, I think we're good.
All right, let's go to number 1. Us again. It's getting old. Come on, guys. No.
First team to lock for playoffs though, and the only team still undefeated.
Yeah. To get more seriously on this though, we're at number 1 again. You know, because we are undefeated. For us, it is nice to be locked in playoffs. It is one of those things where we are grateful to just have that like out of our mind, but we have one goal this year and it's to win. So like it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, cool, like on to the next one. We've been taking it on a week by week basis, but to kind of just break down a little bit of our success, and if you can watch the tape, is diversity is the name of the game here. We've broke down our last couple matches. We've only Dynamaxed. The most amount of times we've Dynamaxed anything is twice. We've Dynamaxed the Grimmsnarl twice. We've Dynamaxed the Duraludon twice. Everything else, the Volcarona was Dynamaxed once. The Noivern has been Dynamaxed once. And are we missing anything else?
Nope, that's 6.
Yeah, that's 6. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, for the most part, everything has only been Dynamaxed a couple times. Diversity has been the name of the game for our draft. It's really been probably our most fun team that we've had, honestly. We love the Mew stuff that we've done, but it's so cool to like throw some of this weird stuff that we have because of the diversity that we have on our team, and it's just working right now. So love the team so far. It's been fantastic. Obviously we won't play around the fact that we are playing in Shield Division right now, which seems to be beating each other up a little bit. So that makes it a lot easier for us to lock in the playoffs right now. Because I don't think we would have locked if we were in Sword Division.
With 6 wins, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think we would have needed probably another win.
Yeah.
Before we lock, we needed to be 7-0.
Right.
And maybe for the Sky Pillars to take a loss.
Maybe, yeah. It also depends if we were in Sword Division. It also just depends which team we replaced.
True.
So
absolutely, yeah.
You know who
yeah,
knows?
there's so many things, but we understand that obviously, you know, we're coming out of a division that may be on the lower end, especially as far as the power rankings are concerned.
But at the same time, I mean, well, we're still undefeated, and we've played some of the better teams.
Yeah.
In that division. I mean, the only team we haven't played in our own division is LA New Wave.
Yes, which we're playing this week.
Right. So I think toward the earlier weeks, when we were sitting either at 1 or 2 on our power rankings, we were maybe a little bit less confident of how much we deserve to be up there because. Partially because of our division is a little bit easier, partially because we had an easier schedule toward the in the early weeks. So like weeks 1 and 4, we were playing the Mimikyus and Raiders, for example. Yeah. But in these last 2 weeks, I mean the next best teams in our division, the Mats and the Patriots, we beat them both these last 2 weeks. So I think even if we have an easier schedule or an easier division, the fact that we are just straight undefeated, I think speaks to the strength of our play and our prep and our draft, even if it's maybe a little bit easier to accomplish that given our position.
Yeah, and I don't think it's fair either to underestimate either some of these teams because a mark of a really good team is that you beat teams that you're supposed to beat, but that doesn't necessarily mean that a good team is always going to beat those teams. Like one of the great examples is probably the Mats, Ben and Vichy. They're 4-2 right now, and they lost to the LA New Wave, a team that a lot would say that they're decently better than. And that's just one of the things where should the Mats have probably taken that win? Are they probably sitting at X-1 right now? Yeah, maybe. But one thing that we know about Hector and Allen is, yes, they're down in the rankings right now, but they're not pushover players. They completely understand this game. They know what it takes to pin you and win these and, win offensively. So, definitely not anything that should be shaking a finger at, despite the weaker division that we're in. I think having the plus 19 differential also kind of helps us a little bit. We've kind of shown that we've been able to take care of business. So definitely nice to be number 1, but the job's not done yet.
Not even close.
Anything else you want to mention?
No, I don't think so.
All right, let's move on to the... Oh, I forgot. I was going to say the pick'ems, but we got to just wrap up the power rankings real quick. You want to shoot through these real quick?
Sure, yeah. Down at the bottom, we've got the Lava Ridge Raiders. They are out for the rest of the season at 0-9. I got the Melee Mimikyus picking up their first win. Unfortunately, it was an auto forfeit, but it's better than nothing.
Win's a win.
Got LA New Wave up here at number 12. Number 11, Socal Skarmories. Number 10, Team Pussy. All 3 of these teams each have 2 wins. LA New Wave not looking quite as strong as the other Socal Skarmories. Doing okay. They seem to be maybe there's a bit of a learning curve with the way that they drafted. They're doing a little bit better than now than they were at least in the earlier part of the season, I think, even though they did take a loss here. Team Pussy looking like the strongest of these 3, especially with the way they've been playing. A couple of their matches maybe coming down to some bad luck. We got the Potatoes at number 9 and the Russians at number 8. Both of them both these teams had a bye this week, so they're not moving at all. Sadistic Seniors taking that unfortunate auto forfeit against the Mimikyus, moving them down from number 6 to number 7. Didn't want to move them down too much, of course, because the 2 teams that are below them had a bye, but also because they didn't actually get to play. Talonflames, Toronto Talonflames coming in at number 6. It was a little bit difficult for us to put them down here at number 6. We kind of wanted to leave them at number 5. But they did take a loss this week. Still one of the top teams in the league. New England Patriots taking their second loss this week. Again, one of the top teams. Only one more win before they lock for playoffs. Then we have the Matt Alcinas, Ben and Vichy. They seem to be on an upward trajectory. They've been doing very well recently, taking some important wins, especially one against the Patriots. Which is part of the reason we wanted to put them above the Patriots because because they did win against their in that match last week. Then we have Doesn't Click at number 3. Clearly one of the best teams in Sword Division. They're 2-time champions for a reason. If honestly, they may very well be undefeated right now if luck was a little bit more in their favor in a couple of these matches. Obviously, one of the best drafts in the league by far. Fantastic players. We fully expect to see them in playoffs. Unfortunately, they did take a loss mainly due to a crit this week. But we did feel we had to move them down. But we also felt that we had to move them down in order to move the Sky Pillars up, because we feel that the Sky Pillars are very deserving of this spot. They had a fantastic game this past week. They are after week 7, they're the number 1 ranked team in Sword Division. I've talked a lot about their team. We really like them as players. We really like the way that they're using their team, the way that they're prepping. And then, of course, number 1, the only undefeated team left and the first team to lock for playoffs is us, the Among Us Burnouts.
All right, guys, that wraps it up for week 7. Let's move on to week 8 and the pick'ems and schedule for next week.
All right, so kicking things off, we have the Mad Alcinas currently 4-2 versus the Potatoes currently 3-3. Their records are not far off from each other. I think prior to the transactions, I think that the Mats were probably the favorite to win here. They still very well could pull something out. But as we talked about when we were going through the transactions, we think that the trades that they made are good for their week 9 and 10 matchups, but pretty not so good for their week 8 matchup here. We think they're gonna struggle against that sand mode in particular, with the trades that they made without Politoed especially. But again, this one could go either way. Both of these teams are great teams. If the top 4 standings in Shield Division stay as they are, both of these teams are making playoffs. So the Mats being number 3 and the Potatoes being number 4 currently. This mostly just comes down to a team-based matchup. Both these teams are they have great players on both sides, so it's not really an easy one to call based on the players, but matchup wise, we think the Potatoes definitely have the advantage after this transaction period. Second, we have us, the Among Us Burnouts versus LA New Wave. Not really gonna say a whole lot here, especially since we're not really sure what we're doing against these guys. So
it's been a crazy week.
Yeah.
Normally we have an idea, but
yeah, so we're not even really sure exactly how the matchup breaks down here, but considering the performances of both of our teams so far, we're picking us as the favorite. As we like to say, we have not been wrong yet, so that's...
If it were flipped, we would still pick us over New Wave. Even if we had 2 wins like New Wave does, we would still pick us over New Wave. Just want to say that right now, just in case New Wave is listening.
Fair enough. And then the last matchup we have is the Lava Ridge Raiders versus the Socal Skarmories. Not really a way to get this one wrong, considering the Raiders are out for the rest of the season. The Skarmories kind of sort of get a bye this week, but, well, it's even better than a bye. They get a free win with a +3 differential. And then we have the New England Patriots on bye this week.
Well-deserved bye for them. They've been, man, week 8 bye week. That's a late bye week, so
yeah.
Get that rest, guys.
Yeah, the early and late bye weeks are always kind of awkward.
Man, yeah, for real. Okay, so moving on to Sword Division, we have Team Pussy and the Russian Assets. Very similar to actually the game in the Shield Division, the Matt Alcinas versus the Potatoes here. The Russians are trying to stop their 2-game skid here, and Team Pussy's trying to pick up another win on their tally. So while we do think that it's going to be a good game. This is actually a rematch from last year. The Russians are the only team that were able to take a game off of Team Pussy last year. I think that includes finals too, where it was best of 3.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
so the Russians were the only ones that took a game off of Team Pussy last year. Obviously, both teams are very different. The Russians are very different. Team Pussy is also looking different. So it's going to be an interesting matchup for sure to watch. We do like the matchup a little bit more for the Russians, mainly because after watching how Doesn't Click was able to utilize that Cinderace and be able to put down a lot of pressure, it's pretty clear that Team Pussy may have a little bit of trouble with the Dynamax Cinderace, but we'll see. We'll see how it works out. These are both very good teams. Honestly, it's kind of just a toss up,
Yeah, this is one I had trouble deciding a lot. It really could go either way. I think that we've seen that the Russians kind of relying on that Trick Room mode a lot, and I think the Trick Room matchup is awkward here. The main Trick Room mode, of course, for Team Pussy being the hat with maybe the Cleffa. We've seen that the Russians are willing to use room service on their Copperajah. They may even try that again this week to underspeed the Hatterene, but that I don't think that will underspeed the Cleffa, which could just go for a charm.
Yeah.
They've got some. They could even, against the Cinderace lead, they could even try to go for the same strategy they used against Doesn't Click this past week. The Bulldoze and the Max Geyser into Cinderace might be enough to pick it up. Since they get the speed drop on the Cinderace, and it's still a fire type once you hit it with that Max Geyser. So they could try to do that. They could try to go Trick Room. They've got different modes they can use. It's really a toss up. I have no idea what's going to happen here.
Yeah, it's definitely a toss up here, especially because the momentum's going both ways. The Team Pussy's looking to add on another win, and the Russians, after taking 2 games lost, they're going to have to try and dig their way out. So it's going to be a close game. Next up is the Toronto Talonflames versus Doesn't Click. The Talonflames have a tough go, man. Having to play against the Sky Pillars, having to play against Doesn't Click the next week. They played against the Russians a couple weeks before. I mean, these last 3 games have been tough goes. So we do really like the Talonflames. We do really like their team composition, but Doesn't Click is Doesn't Click, And I said this before, and I'll say it again. I would not want to be the team that's gonna get in the way of Ryan and Fiona trying to get a win after their loss. Like, they do not like to lose 2 in a row. And they're going to do everything they can to make sure that they don't. So, we'll see what happens. We are choosing Doesn't Click here, but this is going to be a good game, honestly. These are 2 very good teams. These are the drafts are good, the coaching's good. So it's going to be interesting. We have Doesn't Click winning this one. And then after that, we have the Sky Pillars versus the Seniors here, the Sadistic Seniors. This is a must win for the Seniors. This is also one that just Sword Division is so, like, there's so much talent here that it really could go either way. But this is going to be a good one right here as well. I do like the Sky Pillars. We chose them because they have the ability to change terrain. The Togekiss, I think, is going to be huge in this. It's going to be really interesting to see what the Seniors pull out. But I don't count these guys out for nothing. They're going to bring something to try and even the table a little bit, so we'll see what happens here. We like the Sky Pillars, but definitely watch out for this one. This one's going to be one to watch. I would say if you're going to watch, a couple of these matches, I would say the 3 that I would watch, probably Sky Pillars and Seniors, the Toronto Talonflames and Doesn't Click, and the Mats versus the Potatoes. Those 3 are going to be really good games, I think. So,
I mean, I'd add Team Pussy and the Russians to that list.
Yeah,
for sure.
Honestly, I'm just I mean, probably every game but ours.
Yeah, not that it's not going to be a good game, but like
handle it.
I mean, it also doesn't really matter that much because we're locked for playoffs. So
yeah, but these games as it comes down to it, it's getting narrower and narrower. Teams are fighting for these playoffs. So look, we're in week 8. This is a 10-week league. So it's coming down to it. We're really fighting to try and figure out who's going to make these playoff spots. So good luck to all the teams out there. We have the Melee Mimikyu on by. Also well deserved because week 8, when you get a week 8 bye, man, that's a lot of playing, so go ahead and take that well deserved rest, guys. You guys need it. And good luck to all these teams that are going to try and make this playoff push here. Just looking at this schedule, it's going to be crazy.
We're getting down to the wire here. Only 3 weeks left, and there's a lot up in the air for a lot of these teams.
I'll tell you what, though. If I'm one of these teams in Sword Division and I see that I'm 5-3 and I'm missing the playoffs, and then I see a 4-4 team in Shield Division make playoffs, or 2 4-4 teams or 4-5 teams in Shield Division make playoffs, I'm be a little upset. But that's the name of the game.
That's the way it goes.
That's the name of the game. It's how it is. You have to play in the rules that are given to you. Everybody else is playing in those same rules. So, anything else that you want to go ahead and say before we wrap this up?
Good luck moving forward in week 8. Hope all of your transactions were worth it. You start to use those now. So, good luck to everybody pushing for playoffs. It's going to be interesting to see how that all breaks down.
Yep, we got a special guest next week. We're gonna try and grab. So it's probably gonna be a little bit late because we have to do that interview late. Might try and do an interview depending on how the games work out. We're looking for really good games here. So, and then obviously scheduling with the teams. We've seen really good games and just scheduling doesn't work out.
Yeah.
But so it should be fun as we go into week 9 as we start looking at the playoffs. We didn't do Geniuses and Idiots yet. Probably are gonna wrap up the year with that because we have so much stuff that we want to do in between them. But all right, guys, we'll see you later. Good luck for the rest of your matches. I'm Anthony. That's Matt. We're the Amoonguss Burnouts, and we will see you next week.